Hello and welcome to Business Today. I'm Siddharth Zarabi and joining me now is Ashish Chauhan, the Chief Executive Officer of the National Stock Exchange of India. We continue our coverage on the landmark trade deal between the United Kingdom and India. And welcome to the show. Mr. Chauhan, you are in London. You are part of the Indian business delegation that's there. So I want to ask you your first reaction to really this landmark deal, one that's taken almost 4 years. What do you make of the significance of this deal?
I think it's an interesting deal in a way that it started getting discussed several years back between the Conservative government in UK, which was more open to free trade, um, and of course BJP government in India. And now it has culminated into an agreement between a Labour government, which came last year in play, and the BJP government. And so it's an interesting play, and there is a background to that, which is also making it more important, is because of the reason that the multilateralism, which was through WTO, United Nations, the IMF, World Bank, all that, is slowly receding. And due to the election of Donald Trump as a president in US over last few months. And you have seen that playbook. This is in a way an outcome of that playbook also. And so the kudos to Indian government and its ministers to continue the dialogues with the new Labour government and ensure that they've landed a very big sort of positive for Indian not only agriculture and fisheries, but also leather and textiles and pharmaceuticals and engineering exports and of course services. Today, the total trade between India and UK is around $56 billion, and they plan to take it to $140 billion in next 5 years, which is almost a CAGR of 18% plus. So effectively, they want to accelerate, and almost 99% of all the exports from India are going to be zero tax, which is, I think, also telling you that UK is also taking sides with US against China, and this is some sort of a framework which will also act as a template for India's other FTAs, which are under discussions with EU and US and other things.
No, that's a very, very important point. And just to remind our viewers once again that this is the first major trade deal with a G7 nation. Unlike in the past, where there were some trade deals, including with the ASEAN bloc, that was more with developing nations, and many of them have become conduits for Chinese goods being sent to India by proxy. And therefore, the point that you make, Ashish Chauhan, is very, very significant. The United Kingdom and London specifically are also a global financial center. There's a very, very significant finance sector and finance sector professionals based out of London. Just for the benefit of our viewers, is there anything as part of this overall pact that can help us leverage that, maybe in terms of professionals and their easier entry into the United Kingdom?
Absolutely. I think overall India's total bilateral trade is $56 billion, out of which around 24 billion are merchandise trade, which is physical goods, and $32 billion is actually the services. And so India scores in services. The total budget, the total trade deficit is in India's favor, almost $10 billion plus, and large part of it is services. And for 3 years, Indian professionals will not have to pay the social security tax, which anyway they would not have taken advantage of when they go back to their country of origin, that is India. And so for up to 3 years, if they stay in UK, then they don't have to pay for that. And I think that's almost a 4,000 crore rupees a year, as we discussed. But as you rightly said, the visa regime is becoming very favorable to India, and Indian professionals will be able to work without even having an office in UK for 18 months. So effectively, many more Indian professionals are being allowed entry into UK going forward, and that would also ensure that people of Indian origin, Indian citizens, who are not permanent resident of UK are going to now work in UK in variety of trades, and that's where many of them will be actually not paying those social security taxes, saving them a very neat sum going forward. So for me, overall, what deals which earlier governments had with UK vis-a-vis, say, India, like China had a great visa regime and also many such concessions, and we were asking UK for those concessions. Those are now being covered under this FTA. So I'm relatively pleased because India does score in services across the world, and we are the services capital of the world, and that's where many of our professionals who are required to work in other countries sometimes get charged taxes for the social security, which goes into the actually local kitty, and that's where all this professionals will be able to save a lot of money. And of course, pharmaceuticals and agriculture,
Right.
fisheries, leather, textiles. It's
Let's
a full works there.
let's also take a quick listen into Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal, who is speaking right now.
Just wonder if that is what will happen.
Which we are working with the United States on. All these agreements stand on their own legs. India is negotiating to protect the interests of our farmers, of our MSMEs, of our workers, of our startups, and at the same time opening the doors for preferential access to developed countries so that we can provide new opportunities and increase jobs, increase business, increase trade with these developed countries, and help us in our journey towards Viksit Bharat 2047.
That was Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal speaking very briefly and giving us a quick comment on that deal, and he was there as the signatory. He's put in a lot of effort as India's Commerce Minister for many years now. Viewers, remember that this has taken almost 4 years and it's seen 2 governments in the United Kingdom. Ashish Chauhan, I want to come to a couple of sectors where you might be able to explain to our viewers. Let's take automobiles for instance. There were fears earlier before the fine print has now been revealed with regard to the impact on Indian automobiles. But now it's clear that whatever easier market access is being given at a higher price point, £80,000 and above. And therefore mass market cars and mass market producers are insulated. What's your own sense of the likely impact as far as India's automobile sector is concerned?
Broadly speaking, I think India's largest numbers are in the mass market, and that's where in some ways the Indian automobile sector is insulated. But also you must understand that Indian four-wheelers market is among the most competitive today, cost competitive also. And in two-wheelers, India is pretty much the world leader. And so when I was talking to the Mahindra Group CEO today at the Chequers, which is the countryside residence of the Honorable Prime Minister of UK, where this event was held, and we were sort of invited to witness this event. Basically, he was very confident that Indian automobile manufacturers should be able to actually export quite a lot to UK also. And so it's going to be a two-way process. Of course, for me, it's not only the cars, but also the electric buses and many other types of vehicles that can be sort of traded between two countries. So it's not necessarily that we are going to see only the cars that get traded. So it's going to be an interesting play, especially in automobiles, because India is anyway a very large country with very large market, although per capita income is lower. But the demand of each type of vehicle is pretty large.
One of the other elements is that if you look at the average tariff on UK goods coming into India, that moves from 15% to 3%, while India gets zero duty access on almost 99% of items. There were some fears that UK getting to bid for government procurement, UK firms may pose a challenge. Do you agree with those fears?
Broadly speaking, many of the Indian industries present today there were very confident that Indian industry today is very strong and they are able to compete with the best and the brightest in the world. And this is going to be a actually level playing field vis-a-vis other countries in terms of the tax that is charged or tariff that is charged onto their exports into those countries. So for me, I would take home saying. The message saying that Indian industry is today much more sort of confident of where it stands and they'll be able to compete. At the same time, the quality that they offer, not only in India but across the world, is of the highest standard, and that's where we shouldn't be too worried. At the same time, there are advantages which UK has, especially in the sectors which require IPs, in defense or in medical or pharmaceuticals and other areas where they are very strong, and catalyst and other chemical processes. I think many of them are now going to set up their plants in India with zero tax on both ways or very low tax on both sides. It's going to be an interesting play, improving the productivity and also the quality of goods they produce on both sides.
There's one more interesting sector, and this is the alcohol sector, and there is very clearly a concession that has been provided to Scotch whisky. And viewers, remember, India is the largest importer of Scotch whisky in the world. 2024, India imported, and I'm guessing consumed all of it, plus locally Indian made liquor as well, 192 million bottles of Scotch whisky. That market is worth $53 billion. Now, very clearly there are concessions there, and I must also remind our viewers, Ashish Chauhan, that concessions have been made on Australian wine, concessions have been provided by India on US Bourbon whisky. Again, for the alcohol sector, we saw stocks react positively because bulk Scotch will also go in as a input into IMFL. Are some of the fears on this front also overblown, Ashish Chauhan?
Yes and no both, because today I also met a few business people who are trying to buy up the breweries in UK, so that they have identified some opportunities here, and of course the tariff is going to come down over a period to 40% from current 150%, and so they think it's going to be quite interesting for Indian-owned Scotch whisky coming into India from UK. But I have reasonable confidence that Indian produced alcohol also can be sold abroad, and we saw some of the liquor manufacturing companies and their CEOs today. So broadly, India being so large in terms of, almost 30 times or 25 times number of people which UK has. So you're going to have a lot of consumption of a lot of things, including alcohol, and some of them could be due to the geo-tagging which happens in Scotch whisky, or many of the Indian products which like basmati rice, which have been also given good concessions. So effectively, it's going to be a two-way process going forward. But like what China did to Italian fashion industry, it's possible that the Indians might do to Scotch whisky by buying over many of those manufacturing companies and producing companies.
That's a very, very interesting take on this matter, because those of who you drink, viewers, you clearly have hopes for certain better access. And I must also remind that there are many Indian whiskies, several of them, which have actually consistently won global awards, and I only have an academic interest in this matter, for being some of the best whiskies in the world. Before we wind down this conversation, I also want to ask you, broadly speaking, in terms of our other trade negotiations that are underway. The United Kingdom deal is done. The US one is currently, hopefully, in its the last part of it being finalized. Earlier today, I had another guest joining us from Washington who said that that proposal is now waiting for President Donald Trump's signature, and it's a matter of days before it gets announced, there is a conversation going on with the European Union as well. Overall, for India's economy, for investment and our trade engagement with the rest of the world, what does this all mean together as far as our growth is concerned, Ashish Chauhan?
So this trade deal, in my opinion, is going to be acting as a kind of a template for India going forward. And it's also interesting that it's happening under that context of Donald Trump becoming president and removing the bilateral trades across the world, and of course against China, mainly against Chinese exports. And that's where India will have, at least India would want to have similar trade deals with US, Europe, uh, and Japan, while as it already has a free trade agreement with Australia. And so like-minded people hopefully will have a similar trade deal, which is in a way earlier multilateral trade deals were not giving that kind of benefits to India. In fact, they were taking advantage of India in many, many ways. And so the new situation, which of bilateralism, is actually in the interest of India going forward. And this particular agreement is actually happening in that background and the first of its kind. So for me, I have a lot of hope that most of the future agreements, which could happen very soon, as you rightly say, would basically be based on this. And we have great strength in our services exports, and that is something which is actually not getting touched almost always, except that we are getting even more benefits by allowing our professionals to work with a lower cost to them in those countries. And so for me, I'm kind of hopeful that we will continue to maintain our services edge and, of course, go up the value chain and also expand what we export in terms of the goods from leather to textiles, which we were not able to export because of the competitiveness of tariff between China, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and others. Whereas now we are going to be much more competitive going forward, and that's why you will see a lot of SMEs and also job creating industries like textile, even agriculture. We have surprisingly become exporters of large amounts, and I think this deal will also help us export even more going forward.
Absolutely. And viewers, as I thank Ashish Chauhan, I'm just reminded of something that our forefathers have fought for, which is independence from Imperial Britain. And 2025, when we have embraced the United Kingdom, which exited the European Union and was desperately looking for a partnership and an economic deal to secure its own future, that a former colony of Imperial Britain has now shaken hands across the table as equals, but a much larger economy, much larger nation, much larger population. And I think it gives us great satisfaction of how we have moved from then to now. And as we move towards India at 100, very clearly it will continue to be a matter of satisfaction for each and every single Indian. Ashish Chauhan, as always, thank you very much for your time with us today, joining us live from London. He's part of the 16-member Indian business delegation CEOs who are there. We'll take a break at this stage and come back with more such conversations. Don't go away. Stay tuned into Business Today. I'll see you again.